Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hero News. And it's Monday and we're here. I feel like we haven't been here on a Monday, Chewy, for months and months and months and months and months.
Yeah, it has been a while, hasn't it? Yes, it's good. It's good. Is this the part where we gloat about the fact that it's only a little bit windy down here and it's been sunny all day? Or is that crass?
No, we don't do that. That is crass. That is very crass. It is coming though. Look, I tell you what we're going to do. It's a bit bizarre how we're going to start tonight's show. But you have to appreciate that the news basically across the whole of New Zealand at the moment is weather. And I want us to be updated as to what's going on. I want you to be updated as to what's going on. So we're actually going to play the TV3 weather forecast in a second. That's how we're going to start the show, by checking out the weather forecast, just in case people who are watching right now haven't seen it and you don't know what's going on. For example, Time to Fly is already talking to us. Gabrielle's really getting real here in Gisborne over the last 2 or 3 hours. So I thought what we'd do is we're just going to do that in a second, right? Just to make sure everyone knows where they are. Because I tell you what, Chewy, the one thing I've been a bit confused about is how slowly this thing is actually moving. Like we were talking about this 3 or 4 days ago. We maybe even talked about it towards the end of last. I did a podcast with Michelle Acorte on Friday, and we talked about it in that podcast. And now it's Monday. Yeah. And it seems like it's only just kind of hitting full on now. And it's going to, so I just want people to have all the information they need to be up to date with what's going on. And so we're going to play a weather forecast, to be perfectly frank with you. We're also going to have a look. There was an interaction last week between Rawiri Waititi and David Seymour, where David Seymour goes all Karen-esque because he takes umbrage with the fact that Rawiri says that he uses racist rhetoric, which he does use, and we want to put this to bed tonight. So tonight, and we've sort of talked about this a couple of times before, but tonight, what I've done is I've got out my PowerPoint, like the good nerd that I am, and I want to go over why David Seymour in particular, but closely followed behind the National Party and many conservatives on the right, absolutely use racist rhetoric. Now, Chewy, you testify to this. You know, sometimes when we're talking about this, I kind of go, I don't know about using the word racist for a person, because there's a lot about that which comes to intent and their heart and their belief system, which you can't read. But racist rhetoric, i.e. the words they're using, is super easy to point out. And of course, I know there are going to be some people who are going, well, if you're talking racist words and you're a racist, I get it. But I like to be precise. And I think this is an instance where we can be precise in saying David Seymour, in my honest hell belief, absolutely uses racist rhetoric. But I won't go to the next stage of calling him a racist because only God knows, Chewy. Only God knows. Is that what we say?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah, I mean, Seymour's an interesting one. Like act as a whole, like we want everyone to be equal, and it's one of those things where you go, yeah, of course,
yeah.
But their idea of equal and their idea of everyone starts at the same place is very, very different.
Yes, make yourself a little note because we'll come back to this because I've got some things to talk about what you've just said. But when we do the actual bit a bit later on this hour, we'll get to some more of that. So note that down to remember us to go back there. And also, actually, we're going to have a look. This is a night of the Karens, and the biggest Karen's not even on tonight, but it's a night of the Karens because fucking conservative boomer broadcaster Kerre Woodham is sitting in her studio going, I just don't understand why Christopher Luxon's not getting cut through. I just don't understand what's going on. And so I thought we should.
Kerre Woodham doesn't understand.
So I thought that we should talk through the situation as to why Christopher Luxon isn't getting quite the same cut through. See, there are some people like Kerre Woodham who live in ivory towers, who have privilege financially to the utmost degree, and they go, but it's just so easy because this Labour people, they've just like had all these sayings and words and like, we're going to get the same, but we really need to move towards national, and doesn't understand why others don't. We'll look into that as we go through the night as well. But look, here's somewhere I wanted to start, and it's obviously the most important issue of the day, Chewy, and it's the issue that split the internet today, and that is, what do you think? What do you think of Sam Smith's Brit Award outfit?
Okay, so my first interaction with this was a meme that I saw that says, "When you're leaving the supermarket without scanning your pick and mix." And then I saw another one was just like, when you're smuggling snacks into the movies. It's brilliant. I love it. It's super weird, and I'm all for it.
I tell you my big problem with it. I just feel absolutely devastated for the poor bastard who sat next to him at the Brit Awards. That's my big concern. Whoever sat next to him. I watched this program called something like My 600-Pound Life. It's quite sad. It's people in America who are 600 pounds, which I think is about 280 or 300 kilos. And it's about how they try and get healthy. It's car crash television. But their legs sort of look like that in real life, many of them. And it's like, that's all I could think of. And the other thing I just want to put to bed, right, is people are putting out various tweets, like there is a one, how about that one there about the inflatable dog? But there's one that's been going around, which is this one here, right? And they're saying, well, David Bowie did it. And I just want to point to this one thing. Does that look like he's walking a red carpet about to sit in a theater?
No,
or does that look like
heaps of weird shit? I love it.
But does that look like a photo shoot where I love it too. I think it looks amazing, but it's not quite a parallel to go, well, Bowie did it to the Grammys. So all I'm saying is, yes, Bowie, iconic fashion sense from the, I guess, 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s. But that's different from the poor dude who had to sit next to this at the Brit Awards. So
I just wonder with an outfit like that, whether they had to make sure it was still inflated like halfway through the show.
Yeah.
Like, Sam Smith's looking a little bit droopy. Send out the assistant with a bike pump.
Yeah. Anyway, more power to him. I mean, I can still remember Lady Gaga wearing a meat dress to one of the award shows.
Exactly.
They want to do it.
They're award shows. Fucking get weird with it.
I think people get into full-on fist fights on a plane over the armrest. Imagine what the person next to him was getting up to at the Brit Awards. Anyway, so you're all for that? I'm just getting you. Taking the. Yeah. You're all for
more weird shit. Yes.
All right.
Not on public transport. That's where I draw the line. But at an award show, sure.
Maybe he had 3 seats, because if he had 3 seats, it'd be one for him, one for each of his legs, and that would work fine. But then, who else gets to go? Okay, look, here's where we're going to start tonight, and this is I don't really have much to add to this, but this is really just a bit of public service announcement. I just want people to be up to date with what's going on, because I guess partially, my South Island privilege comes into play here, is that I haven't really been, it's not that I haven't been keeping up to date with it, but I haven't been well enough informed to know exactly what's been going on. I felt like this thing was going to blow through in a few days, and it's still hanging around, and tomorrow is supposed to be not that crash hot. So maybe you'll think as mundane as this sounds, and if you're listening to us on the audio podcast, I'm sorry, but you're going to get a weather report. But this is the weather report as of about 2 hours ago. It was up to date then, and I just wanted us to be up to date, know what's going on, and so everyone can have a quick look at what's happening around the country for them this evening and through tomorrow as well. I'm feeling a bit responsible, actually. I don't know why, but like a grown up, I wanted us to check out the weather super quick, and then we'll get on to probably Kerre Woodham and Christopher Luxon.
No, my Arnold, welcome back. Cyclone Gabrielle is nearing Great Barrier Island and will move away to the southeast of the north tomorrow morning, passing just to the north of East Cape Tuesday evening. Then it moves north of the Chatham Islands late Wednesday. So that means we still have more than 24 hours of hazardous weather to go, with the storm's reach now extending into the South Island. So the wind does pick up in the north tonight with strong east to northeast winds. Fog settles in the actual south tomorrow morning, then that clears. Scattered showers showers in the east turn to rain in the afternoon and evening with strong south to southeast winds over the top half of the South Island as per the weather warnings. There is just so much rain tonight for the entire North Island. Coupled with the rain, strong gales with the direction dependent on where the centre of the storm lies.
It's like, you know, Prince, how he went by, the artist formerly known as Prince. That's the space formerly known as the North Island under that cloud.
Showers over Northland in the afternoon with strong southeast to southwest winds. So tonight and the morning is wet up top. Heavy rain before dawn, then it does start to ease back to showers in the afternoon with severe gale southeast to southeast winds. Morning rain, heavy before dawn here too, then starting to clear in the afternoon. Gale winds shift around, turning from the east or southeast to the southwest in the afternoon. More heavy rain for the east with thunderstorms in Dannevirke before dawn, but the rain lightens slightly into the afternoon around the same time that the gale winds start to ease back. Rain for the rest of the island, heavy too at times with strong south to southeast winds gusting up to 120 kilometres per hour for Taranaki and Wellington, but again easing back in the afternoon. It looks mostly cloudy for the west coast with occasional rain for Nelson. Winds are strong, southerlies rising 90 k's for Westport and Nelson, and
so that's significant, 90 k's. I know it's not as significant as the North Island, but getting into the south. In the morning up top and in the afternoon from Christchurch south. Winds are strong, gusting 100 k's an hour for Kaikoura and 90 for Blenheim. And partly cloudy for the rest of the island with pockets of morning and evening fog. Bottom half of the South Island doesn't seem to get too much of it. But for people who didn't know, if you're in the top half of the South Island, 100 kilometre per hour gusts tomorrow. With
isolated showers arriving in the afternoon, there's a fresh nor'easter that does ease tomorrow night. It's cloudy to start for Ōtautahi Christchurch with showers turning to rain in the afternoon. The southeasterly gets quite strong about Banks Peninsula.
And then further
gale
north,
southeasters tonight gusting 120 k's for the capital. Then tomorrow morning it's a southerly gusting 120. Heavy rain at times, but the rain and wind eases late afternoon. Gale easterlies also gusting 120 k's for Hawke's Bay tonight with thunderstorms. Tomorrow that will be a southeaster gusting 120 k's. Heavy rain but easing. Southeasterlies gust 100 k's tonight for Tauranga, turning easterly by dawn with heavy rain. Then it's easing in the morning, clearing to be fine but still windy in the afternoon. Gale southeasters tonight with heavy rain for Hamilton, gusting 90 kilometres an hour. The rain eases to showers with the wind also easing back, just a fresh southwesterly in the afternoon. Damaging wind gusts of 120 k's for Auckland with heavy rain before dawn. Wow. Then the rain eases. However, severe gale southwesterlies are expected all day with gusts of 130 k's.
There you go. We don't need the rest of it. We don't need to look at fucking Adelaide with a perfect day and a high of 28. I know we've never done anything like this before ever, just kind of doing, here's the weather for tomorrow, but I think it's important that the news is all filled with it. We're not talking about it tonight necessarily, but I wanted for people to watching live especially, but if you get this within the next 12 hours to know that basically Christchurch North, you're expecting 100 kilometre per hour winds, gusting 100 to 120. So everyone should be prepared. Yeah, and I felt like we needed to put that out there. So if people haven't seen it, there was a few texts and I can see a fuck in the text. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So maybe other people weren't quite aware of what was going on. Now, at least every smart person in New Zealand, because you're all watching, now at least knows what's going on. So
yeah, I was just flicking through like previous tropical cyclones and former cyclones that have affected New Zealand in the past, and there's a few that dip down this far south, but this one seems to be quite a bit more intense. Even reading up on Cyclone Bowler, I think that a lot of people have a memory of that, but yes, that doesn't seem to have a scratch on what this is.
I heard the Met Service today say this is no longer a tropical cyclone, but it is a cyclone. Apparently the word cyclone talks about the cyclical movement of it, movement of it, but the tropical part talks about where it's come from, but it's still cyclone strength winds. And you're right. I think that when we think about cyclones, we think about the top half of the North Island because they come down from Pacific Islands and they hit up there, but this is strong winds basically through what, 2/3, 3/4 of the country. And it looks like the West Coast and the bottom half of the South Island are the only places that aren't really going to get something, I'll say that something potentially significant. And I think it's us. I mean, we sort of talk news. I don't know what we do. We kind of yell news. But I think it's important for people to have this conversation. And you were saying that looking at historically what's been going on. I was talking to a mate in Auckland who lives in Pakuranga, and his house is on a property, and there's a creek at the bottom of the property, and they were fine for the first rain. Like they didn't get the creek didn't flood in their house. But when I talked to him in the weekend, he was digging ditches in his backyard just in case. And he said, now I guess this is hearsay, but he is someone involved in the news radio world, so he's probably up to date. He says the reports at that point were the rains were going to be heavier than a few weeks ago. And remember, a few weeks ago, we got told there was 3 months of rain in a 24-hour period. Now, cyclones move, and that was supposed to hit Auckland hardcore, and it's gone off to the side a little bit. So that's not a weather report from me, but there are still sodden grounds in parts of the top half of the North Island from the last lot. And so there's nowhere for this water to go other than up, should it hit in a worst possible way. And I guess we just want to say, be safe. And we want everyone to at least know right now, if you're watching live, what's to come potentially in the next. Sounds like it's almost going through to sort of Wednesday breakfast. So the next sort of 36 hours from now.
I think for Auckland tonight is supposed to be a bit of a red line event. Certainly before I left work today, we had 35 cell towers out of action.
Wow.
That part of the country. That's to say they were probably without power, because there was thousands and thousands of homes and businesses without power earlier this afternoon.
Yeah.
Rather than the cyclone picking up cell towers and flinging them into the sea. But yeah, the other thing I found really interesting this morning, right, because there's been a lot of talk about this, right? We've had a lot of lead in that it's coming down, and it's all the predictions are that it's coming towards New Zealand. And there was obviously the storms from the other week fresh in people's minds of like, get ready, I mean, evac centers and that sort of thing. By God, the conspiracy community was kicking off.
Right.
Because they were like, oh, this has never happened before. And this is it was this weird combination of the storm's not real because it's only overcast outside my house right now.
Yeah.
And also the storm is real, but it's like a weather weapon or cloud seeding, or
there are people
out to get us again. It's very strange.
There are people talking in the chats. Obviously they're not. I don't think the people who are talking about it in the chat are saying that that's what they agree with, but they're telling us that people are talking about chemtrails. And I saw a headline the other day about no, the storm isn't from seeded clouds.
Yeah, that was on stuff and if you have to go to the point where you go, yeah, let's publish a story, they're getting a lot of comments and a lot of emails from the cooker community.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I had a conversation with someone the other day, just to die. This is tangent number 1 of 3 for the night. I think I might have said this on air. If I haven't, we'll get it for the first time. When it's called motivated cognition, which we've talked about before, when particularly a conspiracy theorist will find a different path to get to the same outcome. So they have the outcome and they decide what it means. And then when you prove that that's not the case, they find another path to get to the same outcome. And one that I heard the other day, my partner got told this actually, so it's firsthand, is that people are starting to say, oh, well, the vaccine in New Zealand mustn't be as strong as around the rest of the world because there aren't as many people dying in New Zealand from it. So they didn't go through that because the vaccine's not killing people. When I say not killing people, obviously I mean in mass. There have been some incidents. They went to the same path, which is, well, it does kill thousands of people, but it doesn't in New Zealand. So we just mustn't. The vaccine here just mustn't be as strong as the rest of the world. So that's the path they took to get to their same conclusion. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
All right, shall we get on with this? Because you're going to like this, I think, because there are some things. I'm going to love it. There's some things. There's some things in this conversation with Baby Boomer Kerre, where she actually says something that I think are going to make your ears prick up, with a little prediction you made at the end of last year about what's going to happen this year. So, Kerre Woodham has put out a piece that basically says, this is an audio bit, National could be snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, and if it did, it would be one hell of an achievement. Let's play this for you. Chewy, throw your hand up or wave your hands around like you just don't care if you want to jump in at any stage. I'll probably pause it at some stage, but let's have a listen to Kerre Woodham's sort of analysis It's funny, talking about motivated cognition, it's like Kerre Woodham is basically saying all these terrible things about Labour, and then like, so why is it National doing better? That's basically the summation of this. Let's have a listen. Oh, it's over here, isn't it?
9% of New Zealanders believe the country is on the wrong track. 42% believe it's going in the right direction. 77% of people feel poorly or not so good about the economy. 22% think it's good or excellent. And this is one of the largest gaps since the pandemic. And yet, National is only slightly ahead of Labour in the latest polls from Talbot Mills. They also run Labour's private political polling. In the
what's going on, Chewy? They're only slightly ahead. They should be smack. I mean, like, because financially I'm doing fantastically. They should be so much further ahead. What's going on here? I remember listening to Ricky Gervais he used to do the XFM radio show, which I still listen to sometimes on the internet. And they were talking about the financial crunch that was coming in the early 2000s. And Ricky Gervais goes, I don't get it. I'm doing really well. I've never been richer. And I kind of get that vibe, but not in a joking way from these sorts of people. It's like, I don't understand. Things are going so well. Yeah. For you, sweetheart.
Results, Te Pāti Māori would hold the balance of power when it came to forming a government. Get ready for another 3 years of a Labour Greens government, people. That is the joy of living in a democracy. How is it?
Don't you love it when right-wingers, like the right-wingers that stand up for democracy and stuff, when it doesn't work in their favour, they're like, oh, fucking democracy.
Yeah.
What are we going to do about it?
That when even Labour knows they're stuffing things up and getting things wrong, hence the change of leader, hence the policy reset, there is still the potential for them.
Can I say this? You know who Isaac Butterfield is? Australian comedian.
Oh yes, yeah.
Fairly controversial. He's got a very good beard.
Yes.
Yeah, very good beard. Quite controversial. He did a bit the other day. I haven't seen it, but he was talking about how Jacinda Ardern, this is going around the internet at the moment, ran away, and ran out of gas and ran away from her job. I thought about trying to get a hold of him and just go, when you're on stage, if someone screams at you that you're a cunt for 60 straight minutes, you might eventually go, I've had enough, I'm getting off stage. Now, multiply that by about 20 million, and you might start to get to the point where I could imagine someone in public life actually being over it and wanting out. Now, I'm not naive enough to say that it's not more calculated than that, but just this idea of, oh, sure, why did she run away from it? I'm like, I don't think anyone has any idea. This is the first prime minister we've had that apparently is going to potentially need to have security for the rest of her life. That's what the Secret Service is saying, or the SIS is saying. I just don't think anyone quite gets it. And I thought about, a comedian on stage screaming at them to eventually they went, oh, I've had enough, and they walk off stage. But if a leader does it, it's like, pathetic. What a lie. So maybe not. Maybe not. Anyway, that was referencing Kerre Woodham's thing about the Labour. They know they're doing wrong because they've changed leaders.
To get another 3 years. I know at News Talk ZB on this particular show, we're in our own little echo chamber here, but it can't be that Labour are doing things right. Even they know they're not doing things right.
It can't be.
The poll says people are dissatisfied and worried about the economy.
Yeah.
But voters don't feel that National is the overwhelming answer. Matthew Hooton, writing in the Herald this morning, says National's nonchalance stems first from it not understanding just how badly Hipkins, Cepoloni, Robertson, Wood want to win a third term. They don't appreciate their hunger, their desperate desire to see things through, to get the policies they care about pushed through.
It's actually a really interesting commentary from Matthew Hooton, because what he's saying is we see, and I'll put my hand up, we see Labour sometimes as a bit of a soft bet, like they don't play politics well enough. But that description of Labour by Matthew Hooton means these guys are grizzled and hardened, and they're in it for the fight, which is a particularly interesting small observation from him.
Whenever Hooton pipes up, like, he's been so wrong so many times about his own party and the people that he backs. He threw in with Judith Collins, he threw in with Wayne Brown.
Was he Muller as
just
well? He might have gone in with Todd Muller, mightn't he?
I'm not sure
Anyway.
about that, but yeah, he just keeps on back and loses. At what point do you go, actually, he's a Labour Party plant?
Let's keep going.
They believe that they have to keep National out of power because of the damage that they believe the 1990s National Party did to families, communities, and childhoods.
Yes.
They remember that. They themselves were affected by it. And they remain convinced that the National of today is ready to re-emerge in the clothing of the National of the 1990s.
Well, I think the point that Kerre Woodham making there is fair, but I think the one like addendum she's missing is she's saying Labour is convinced of that. It would appear that enough of the voting base is also convinced of that to be keeping it close at the moment. That's what I would say. This bloody democracy, psh. You know, it seems that enough people, which is why when we, and I haven't got the numbers tonight, but when we last looked at the trust numbers, that the trust numbers for Luxon were terrible. I think there's enough of the public who remember those days, who remember all the things that came off, all the user pays that came in, all that sort of stuff, that it's not just perhaps the Labour leadership who think that, but enough New Zealanders also think that warrant concern.
I think it's interesting because we've got two, I guess, like institutional memory, I guess, of that time, like the National Party of the 90s.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people remember that for all of those changes in policies. You know, what was it? Euthanasia? Just the absolute brutal cuts to social services.
Ruthonomics?
Rogernomics. That was Labour. And that's the other sort of institutional memory. The farming sector remembers that, and they blame Labour, and they still blame Labour for it.
Although, did you read I think in the weekend, I bookmarked it somewhere, the head of Federated Farmers saying that the farmers have lost a friend in Jacinda? Did you read that?
What?
Yeah, I'll try and find it.
What?
I'll try and
oh
find
my
it.
God. Has the Federated Farmers, I mean, they must have lost touch with a big segment. Well, not even a big segment, a loud segment of farming, though. Because groundswell came out of farmers that didn't feel that like they were being listened to by Federated Farmers.
There you go. Found it just like that because I am a genius. Federated Farmers President Andrew Hogarth believes the agriculture sector is losing a friend with the shock resignation of Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. So, you know,
Jesus. Okay.
Just
you could have maybe cracked that one out a little bit earlier there, buddy.
All right, let's keep going with Kerry Boomer, whatever her name is. Smortem.
Matthew Hooton says too that National doesn't understand David Seymour's ACT Party, and its only credible coalition partner. If, and it seems likely, that Christopher Luxon can't get National above 40%. I've spent time with Christopher Luxon. He's come into the studio. He's taken calls from you.
She almost seems in pain, doesn't she?
All the answers. He's got all the figures. He's got all the detail.
He's got all the answers.
An impressive grasp of detail.
Impressive.
He's perfectly personable.
Yeah, yes.
But he's just not getting any cut through. I don't know what more he can do. He can't be somebody else.
Wait for it.
Somebody else could be the leader of the National Party, but I don't think that would work right now.
Oh, did you hear it, Chewy?
I did.
Did you hear it, Chewy?
I'm just saying.
Hang on. Stop. This is a little bit of your glory. So I'm leaving. And you can just, this is your prediction from last year. What would you like to add?
I am all a tither. I will be, and this is my other prediction here. I will be unbearable if I am correct on this. I will like a sun collapsing into a black hole. I will be overwhelmed by my own smugness if I get this right.
Yeah. All right.
Mark it on the calendar.
We'll keep going.
Especially after Labour has replaced its leader. It would look desperate, and it would be desperate. I think Hooton is right, though. The best opportunity to gain traction on Labour would be for National to form a working alliance with ACT. Work out what policies they can work together on, what a centre-right New Zealand would look like.
Centre-right.
So voters can decide whether
right.
that is the direction they want New Zealand to head in. We know where Labour wants to take us. We've seen an example of the sort of policies they would like to become set in stone in New Zealand's legislation. We know what Grant Robertson can and cannot do. So we have a good idea of what a Labour government looks like.
So this is where we go through the things like lowest unemployment, lower inflation than the rest of the OECD, all these good things. That this is what Grant Robertson's all about. Is that what she means? Do you think that's what she means? Or do you think she means, they talk about gender too much? Do you think she might mean that? That might be more what they mean. I don't know.
I think they really do need to work together, Christopher Luxon and David Seymour, to show voters what a centre-right New Zealand would look like. More about the policies.
We know what it would look like.
No, we don't want any more empty rhetoric. We've had 5 years
That's all he's got.
of sloganeering and empty rhetoric.
Oh my God.
Little catchphrases that have become earworms for a generation of people.
There you go. That's enough. Speaking of earworms.
Man, she is so okay. I like to think that I don't like to think. I'm very aware that often I'm in my own lefty bubble. And at times that can just swing around and smack you in the face. Wow, that's gonna hit her like a fucking truck.
I used to work after Kerre Woodham. I don't have many nice things to say about her as a human being. I now want to see Labour win more than ever before, if for no other reason to stick it up.
She sounds divorced from reality.
Yeah. I
can get someone going, hey, look, Labour's not my cup of tea. There's some things in the last couple of years that I didn't agree with. But that's just that's unhinged Kool-Aid drinking there.
Yeah, well, look, she's not a very nice person, in my opinion. And also, she's so disingenuous at the moment. And look, this is not just me talking. Chewy, there's some people I talk to in the radio industry about various things. Is that since she took over from Leighton Smith, and look, Leighton Smith, for all my disagreements with his politics, was the yardstick when it came to talkback. The best talkback host New Zealand's ever seen, without question. Kerre Woodham fills in, takes that slot over, and rather than forging her own path to where she would naturally sit politically, which I used to listen to in the evenings before I came on after her, she's basically just taken on a right-wing position to service Leighton's audience. It's also just real performative kind of radio and stuff as well, that it's and just real self-serving. And she told me, I won't tell stories outside of work. I won't do that. I'm not saying anything like, people will be like, oh, it's a bit misogynist. She's a woman. Like, no, she's just not a nice person, really. Yeah. She's really not a nice person. So if it was a guy who was not a nice person, I'd also say the same thing. So yeah, anyway.
I don't know if this is no, it's not a tangent. It's not a tangent.
Tangent number 2.
Have you seen today's Curia poll?
No.
I'm gonna pop it up because I think this segues quite nicely, right?
Okay.
We've talked about this a couple of times. Why isn't Christopher Luxon getting cut through? So there we go. Obviously, Curia poll funded by the Taxpayers Union. Any sort of accusations of bias there. We've got a graph there tracking Luxon, Seymour, and a combination.
Is that Labour in red? And
yeah.
So is that saying both National and ACT are unfavourable and Labour is incredibly favourable?
Correct.
That's hilarious.
So yeah.
Where are the greens? Is there a green line in there, or are they not bothered about the greens?
Track because you don't. Of course, a hippie's not going to be a preferred prime minister.
Is this preferred prime minister, or is this party favourability?
No, this is leadership.
Okay.
This is Seymour, Luxon, and a combination of Dern and Hipkins.
Okay.
So you see here the massive uptick.
Yep.
For Hipkins. So
yep.
I mean, I think, I'm surprised by that uptick. But you must be spewing at that point to go, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like the things I'm saying of like, oh, it's a new leader, but it's the same party. and just kind of brushing it off that Hipkins ain't shit. And
I
then you
wonder.
have two emergencies, disaster response things comes along. Hipkins looks great. Luxon looks ineffectual. Yeah, it's been bad. And did you see Luxon's school visit for the end of last week?
No, but I did notice there hasn't been much talk from Luxon about opening all the schools this time around.
There was.
Have you noticed there's been no, but some of the schools could be open. Talk from Luxon this time around.
No, you got Auckland Grammar saying that they're open. So there was, I forget what school it was, but it was classic pre-election, be real of him going to a school and talking with some students and that sort of thing. And they interviewed the students. What's the most important thing that you want to talk to the leader of the opposition about? And like 5 people go, climate change. And then this spectacular piece of video of him talking to a gym full of students, and just the same corporate buzzwords, the empty sloganeering that we've hear from him
to 16-year-olds.
Yeah, to school kids. He's just reading off the same script that he talked, like where he's in Kaiapoi or Rangiora the other week. It sounded exactly the same. And then a hero steps forward from the back of the auditorium. You're a dickhead. And he goes, sorry, you heard me? You're a dickhead. That I salute you, brave unknown school student.
Sounds
Whatever
like we need to get
you got. That was worth it.
Sounds like we need to get a correspondent out of that kid. Look, Peter says something, right? And this is true, right? Peter says honeymoon, 100%. There will be an element of that bump, which will be honeymoon. However, like we said when those polls came out a couple of weeks ago, the TVNZ, TV3 on the same night polls, National will be devastated that they've spent a year putting Luxon in front of people, and the first day Chippy comes in, he rates higher than Luxon as preferred prime minister. That is, I don't care how they spin it, that is devastating. And what that says to me potentially, when it comes to what you just showed, is it potentially means game on. I mean, it also means there, because I always think about like the people who don't like to, like I had this conversation, and I've already referenced his conversation once, a guy called Stephen Lewandowski, who was the professor who talked about motivated cognition in one of my podcasts. And he talked about conspiracy theorists, and he's talking about, people who adhere to a capitalistic kind of mentality are people who typically adhere to a conspiracy theory more. And I'm like, that doesn't resonate with me, because I know a lot of hippies that don't want to put aluminium in their bodies. And he said to me, yeah, you know what the thing is, though? If you have a room of 100 people, it'd be hard to find the left-wingers would be in there, but you'd be hard to find them. It'd be hard to find the left-wingers in there who do that. Now, I wonder if those left-wingers who had something to do with Jacinda and, putting things in our bodies have all just flooded back now because they've got rid of what they considered to be the demon person at the top, their words, not mine. And so they can now get back to the place they once were. I wonder if that's the bump, and yes, it'll be a honeymoon, and yes, it won't stay like that, but yeah, it feels like game on. And there has been some word, I don't think they should call it a snap election, but there has been some word around, about snap election. And it's like, well, sheesh.
I can't see that happening.
Well, the thing about snap election that would be beneficial is New Zealand First would not get in. That would be the beneficial thing.
Okay, you convinced me in a single sentence.
The longer Winston hangs around, the more chances that he'll get in. But hey, look, this is flowing on to the next conversation. This is actually from last week, but we weren't here on Friday, so I want to play it. And ironically, I saw this. If you look up David Seymour's Twitter feed, I'm sorry to have to send you there. Can you go there, or are you banned? You might be banned from there.
I don't think Seymour's banned me because he believes in free speech.
I saw him put this clip up on his Twitter feed. It's not I'm going to play the full clip. He played a portion of it, and he put it up as like a ha ha ha, I got him sort of thing. But I tell you what, Rawiri Waititi has absolutely demolished Seymour in this conversation. there is a couple of wins in this, and there is one big loss. I'm going to get to it, but I'm going to play this conversation for you on Seymour's Twitter feed. It's like a 90-second clip that's been edited down. I'm going to play you the full 4 minutes. This conversation is with the breakfast show, AM show, sorry, and it starts with Melissa, the host, talking to Rawiri about how Labour is backpedaling. And the thing that Rawiri does is he explains why they're backpedaling. And it sounds like he's not that impressed with the backpedaling, but then he puts out the reason why he thinks they have to backpedal, and we'll let it play through from there and then pick up on it. Again, Chewy, shout out if you want to jump in. I will jump in.
I just want to say one thing before you hit play.
Go.
Rawiri's impeccable drip.
Yeah. Is the business, eh?
Yeah. He is the business.
Here we go.
Chris Hipkins is now the driver of this Labour vehicle, and he's got it going very, very fast in reverse. And so he has to come to the pressure of the likes of National and ACT, who have emboldened that type of narrative out there in the public, social media, around words like co-governance, words like policies around three waters, and all those types of things. And so, I'm not seeing a difference in regards to where the current policy settings are for Labour, even in the environmental space, with the Greens not being able to put too much pressure on Labour in terms of the biofuel space. It just seems like they're all mixed up in the one puna, which is concerning to me.
So to be clear, because the audio is not 100%, the pressure and the rhetoric, and we're not finished with that word rhetoric yet, that National and Labour has caused, and I think about groups like Groundswell, they're out there, he hasn't used the word dis or misinformation, but the dis or misinformation out there has caused Labour to need to back down. Right now, obviously it sounds like he's not that happy that they've backed down, but that's where he's laying that at the feet of why Labour has to do a U-turn, because based on all the bullshit that's out there. Would that be a fair summary of what we've heard so far, Chewy?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right, now we'll keep going because we're going to get to a main point.
Is that if we can succumb to the kind of racist rhetoric that's coming through some of the social media platforms and the pressure from the public who think like that and who are emboldened when political parties start to push that type of rhetoric, fear-mongering rhetoric, it puts more, I think, public pressure on those Māori leaders who are pushing to get a more equal and equitable balance when it comes to decision making here in Aotearoa.
Rawiri, we understand actually that David Seymour is on the line now and can now hear our discussion. When you're talking about political leaders and racist rhetoric, are you speaking about what David Seymour has said on co-governance?
Oh, absolutely. And so the ACT and National Party have both been pushing a fear-mongering campaign against co-governance, which actually puts a lot more pressure on.
Take all of that, Rawiri. Why don't you tell us?
One moment, David.
Excuse me.
David,
if we can just let David respond, Rawiri.
Very serious accusation to make.
Rawiri, if we can just let David respond, and I'll come back to you, David.
What? Thank you, Rawiri. To say that somebody is racist is a very serious accusation to make. What specifically?
I said you're pushing racist rhetoric.
Thank you. Now, if you could stop interrupting, what specifically is it that we have said that you think is racist rhetoric?
Oh, look, I'm not going to get into the nits of that, David. You can work that out. But what's happening is this.
So this is where Rawiri has missed the boat, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because we'll get to this, but I just wanted to pause. This is where Rawiri has missed the boat. And unfortunately, what's happened here, and why we're here, whānau, is to help you share some stuff to help expand on what's been said. That's what we're doing right now. Because Rawiri missed the boat here because he could have shut down this conversation and put a point out on national television to, it's TV3, dozens of people, as to what that rhetoric actually was. He didn't do it. Now, whether he chose not to do it or whether he was put on the spot and couldn't find it immediately, I don't know. But he's missed an opportunity here. And of course, what's going to come from this, from people who don't see what we're doing, is, you see, buzzwords, nothing to back it up. So this is unfortunate, but but we will get to what the truth behind it is as we go through.
That those of us that are out there trying to push for a more equal, equitable, fair, and just society based on Te Tiriti o Waitangi have had to do this because there is a big pushback.
But Rawiri, in
we're not talking about co-government.
In the announcements yesterday, can I just say that in the announcements yesterday, you speak about national enact, but actually it's this Labor government who have signalled that actually co-governance appears to be getting ditched. They haven't actually said that,
Melissa?
but they have said that any change to the structure of Three Waters will include a change to governance structure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that has come from the pressure of those who are pushing that type of rhetoric. And so,
So the racist rhetoric around things like co-governance is the reason that Labor is making that decision. Now, from an ideological point of view, I think it's weak of Labor and it annoys me. From a pragmatic point of view, if you want Labor to be the next government, that's sort of the game, which is unfortunate. Now, this is an important part. I'm just going to go back a few seconds so we don't clip the start of it, because this is where Mr. Seymour jumps in and asks a direct question, which we're going to respond to.
And so,
what type of
vehicle going on reverse? Hang on, David. I gave you an opportunity to speak. Be quiet, please. Is that we've got a government now retracting because of the pressure that the opposition have put on them and have created in the communities that follow them.
David, I do want to bring you back in on this because we missed out on talking to you at the beginning. Broadly, feel free to respond to Rawiri, but also broadly, your reaction to the culls in general and whether this is going to have an impact on cost of living pressures.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think what we just heard is very, very interesting. You've got somebody who says they're committed to racial equality, who makes wild accusations all the time, and you say, well, what exactly have we said? What exactly have we done? And he says, I couldn't get into the nitty-gritty, you work it out. And I think that was a very telling exchange, and I think people should think very carefully about Rawiri Waititi and what he's really up to.
So, pretty big, heavy call at the end there. Now, from a game of politics, Seymour kind of has a point because he didn't respond well to that question. Now, I can see Jonty, and I see you've started. You can put it up as you want because I can respond to that. Have said they've blindsided him. They didn't. I didn't play the full interview. They were supposed to be on together in studio, and David Seymour got stuck in traffic. So he wasn't blindsided. He may not have known he was absolutely coming up, but they were due to be on together at the same time, and Seymour was stuck in traffic. So that was already prearranged, just so everybody knows. However, one of the best things to come from this, right? And if you're someone like me, like Chewy, who is left-leaning or a left-wing lunatic, what David Seymour has just done is severed any small possibility there ever was for Te Pāti Māori to get into bed with an ACT national coalition.
Yep.
That, I've been saying, you never know, John Key, he did it and was supplying confidence and, but that conversation has severed any possibility of that ever potentially happening. So from a left point of view, thank you, David Seymour.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Chewy?
Yeah, just getting back to the first time that I watched that clip where Rawiri didn't want to get into the nitty-gritty, 100% he should have hit them with examples. He knows what they are. I just don't think he had thought to prepare it. Maybe, but this is the game. He needs to be prepared. This is the game. Yes, and so 100%.
Yeah,
because I think if he had it there, he would have had Seymour on the ropes.
Yeah, well, so we've said this to David Seymour and directly to his face. So let's just go through now, so you can understand. And please don't put it out like I'm being patronizing to you. You're all very smart people. You must be if you're watching this, because no morons in this thing.
And also very good looking.
And very good looking. Very good looking.
Very well put together.
Especially if you've got beards. So we just want to spell this out one more time, because it is absolutely accurate that David Seymour uses racist rhetoric. However, this is the game, right? This was the question that David Seymour asked Rawiri. It's a quote. It's word for word. It's what he said. What specifically is it that we have said that you think is racist rhetoric. Now, this is a very clever tool, whether he knows it's clever or not, let's not give him too much credit, is specifically means point to the racist thing I have said specifically. What is it? That is sometimes difficult to do, but it doesn't mean you don't have racist rhetoric. So I don't think you're going to find David Seymour using the N-word or talking about, you know, useless Maoris or whatever like that. I don't think that's going to happen for a specific issue, right? However, this is the areas within the Human Rights Commission that it's illegal to be discriminated based on, right? These are the areas. This is from the Human Rights Commission website. You cannot be discriminated on because of your age, sex, gender, or sexual orientation, right? It's illegal to be discriminated against based on that. Your marital or relationship status. It's illegal to be discriminated against based on that. It's illegal to be discriminated based on having a family or not. It's illegal to be discriminated against about being in a relationship or related to a certain person because of your religious or ethical beliefs, because of your color, your race, Mr. Seymour, ethnicity or country of origin. It's illegal to be discriminated against based on having any kind of disability, impairment, or illness. It's illegal to be discriminated against because of your political opinions. And it's illegal to be discriminated on based on your employment status. Now, if you're watching, you'll see what I've written in red there, which is except when you can. Now, what that means is there's a thing in the law which is legal discrimination. So let's have a look at some of these. Chewy, you can think out some of these and throw it out there. It's illegal to be discriminated on based on age, unless you want to vote at 16, unless you want to drink at 15, unless you want to get a pension and you're younger than 65. All of those things you're allowed to be discriminated against. It's illegal to be discriminated on based on having a family or not. But Chewy, you can't get working for families.
No.
That's money from the government. You're being discriminated against based on not having children that you know of. Whereas I, having children that I know of, I'm able to get it. You are being discriminated against. But you know what? It's legal discrimination. And you can go through all of these, and let's get to the fucking religious discrimination. Still basically in law, you can discriminate against women if you're in the Catholic Church by saying you can't be a woman and be a priest. That's discrimination based on sex, but it's legal because you are allowed to discriminate against it. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It's very, very clear, right? David Seymour and his kind are guilty of using racist rhetoric, not because they are talking about equality when it comes to race. It's because they are only interested in equality under the law when it comes to race. David Seymour doesn't want to make it equality under the law when it comes to fucking age, because then 15-year-olds would get the vote. David Seymour doesn't want to make it equal and equality under the law when it comes to religion, or else you'd have male nuns in the Catholic Church. He doesn't want to level the playing field for any other area of discrimination. He only wants to level the playing field as he sees it when it comes to race, which is why it's racist rhetoric. All the other protected classes, they're fine with legal discrimination or special privileges because people like David Seymour will say they think there's a good reason why you shouldn't be able to vote at 15. So what they're actually saying is there is not a good reason for legal discrimination based on race. That's the point they're trying to make, which they're not making, right? They're not making that point. At the very least, that would then be an honest debate. But if you're going to have that debate, you would then need to include Māori as a part of it, not dictate to them from on high what is the answer. So, yes, David Seymour absolutely uses racist rhetoric, not because he wants to see equality for everyone based on race, but because he only wants to see equality based on race. And so what he's saying is, let's all be equal. Let's not let those brown folk have special privileges, but those disabled folk, they can have special privileges. Those elderly folk, they can have special privileges. That religious group, they can have special privileges. That's all discrimination. He's not after any of that. He's only trying to flatten what he describes as the curve based on race. David Seymour, that is racist rhetoric.
Yep, absolutely. Like my issue with this is, he's always talking about equality and special privileges for special groups, and we shouldn't have all that. We should all be equal New Zealanders under the law. And nominally, that stuff that, of course, you would go, yes, we want equality. But my issue with him and with his party, with where he's trying to draw a line, is where is his starting position that we were all equal?
Yeah, very much.
At what point is it? Because in my mind, that should be the treaty. That's the starting point. That's
you mean the founding document, Joey? Founding document.
It's a strange place to start.
There's a clue in that word, isn't there? The founding document. There's a clue there somewhere.
So I mean, here's the thing, right? We signed a document, and then as soon as that was all done, Europeans started heavily putting their finger on the scale and bringing over their institutions and their laws from Europe. And at that point, Māori were on the back foot. They were outnumbered. At the point that they were outnumbered, they could never change it back.
Yeah.
There's 120 plus years of having these European structures come in. We took land off them, we imprisoned them, we took their language away from them. And when I say we, let's just say European
settlers, the people who made the agreement,
settlers and governments and structures.
And it's the crown. I mean, yes, it was the crown, but then when we got more independence, the government of New Zealand took on responsibility for that. So it's the government.
And all of that was legal and fine. And then at some point in the late 70s, early 80s, we started to look at redressing. Māori started to get more upfront and more organised, and started to protest and push and point out. And the Treaty of Waitangi started to address all of these things. And at this point, that little redress in the scales, people started to get real uncomfortable. When you're benefiting from the dominant structure and that structure changes, that is frightening. Oh, my farm's on stolen land, or it's a lease from the crown, or I get all of these advantages, I get these job opportunities, and now there's a chance that it's not, and I has to start considering things that aren't my culture. Things like I saw a comment on Twitter today from a nurse. Now, he's a guy that immigrated over from England quite a few years ago, and someone came up to him and says, "Oh, you must be furious with all of these overseas nurses coming in and taking the jobs." He's like, "Well, actually, I'm a nurse from overseas." I don't mean you. You're a Kiwi.
Yeah.
And at that point, hearing that phrase, ordinary everyday Kiwis. Ordinary, everyday Kiwis, they mean white New Zealanders. Yeah. I'm an ordinary, everyday Kiwi. My opinion counts more. And it's that, you don't want to sort of go, well, I'm not part of that, but you are. You are part of the structure. And we have to push back on that as much as possible. I will be furious if we put Three Waters through without Māori co-governance.
Well, it's already through. They've passed the law.
Yeah, but there's criticisms changing. They're thinking of changing the governance structure and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, when people are pushing back on that, because we've had 100 years of European dominance over our laws and how we do things, and that's got us to this point, and a lot of it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked, and there's no harm in trying something else and going back and going, hey, are we a partnership or not?
I you know me, I like analogies, make it simple. I used to talk to people on Talkback who would phone up and talk about things like settlements and the treaty and all that kind of stuff. And there's two things I'd always say to them. The first is, if you have a contract between two parties, one of the parties can't just cancel the contract. So you need both parties to agree to either cancel it or or continue on. And what you're getting at the moment is one party saying let's cancel it. The other thing is, I always used to say to people, where are you from? And they'd say things like, oh, I'm from, ancestors from Scotland. Oh, cool, great, Scotland. And what would you do, for example, if in World War II, the UK government took 100 acres of your grandfather's land for defense purposes and then never returned it? And if they had it, you'd be worth $10 million a day. Would you want some kind of redress for that? And the liars would say no. And I just go, don't bullshit. Come on, let's not bullshit. Let's go. If it was you and it was in your situation, of course you'd want some kind of redress. What's the difference? Well, time. So, well, 3 generations, we're back into the 1800s. It's not that difficult, really.
This is coming from the party of property rights. If you want to go back to that, okay, let's take it back to the discussion of property rights. Let's talk about the treaty, because the whole thing was about property rights. They haven't had the protections under the law that they were supposed to have had.
Correct. And look, that's all it is. I mean, for the party of business to not understand how a contract works, you kind of really got to understand. That's why, like we always say, Christopher Luxon is not a businessman; he's a board member. What businesses have he ever started? What businesses has he ever taken up? What budget has he ever had to worry about, other than let's cut people to let the CEO still earn more money? He's not a businessman, and it's the same. It's like there's a contract. It's not difficult to understand there is a contract, and the reality is, and I don't care if people disagree with this, it's very clear in law that if there is a contract written up in two parts, i.e. an indigenous language and introduced language, then the indigenous language gets priority. That's law. That you can't change that, which actually means the Māori version of the treaty is more valid than the English version. So when I sat down in front of Don Brash and I asked him what rangatiratanga is, and I asked him these 3 or 4 words, and he said, I don't know. I'm like, well, how do you profess to be an expert on the treaty? You don't understand what the words within the words that there are conflict about. You don't understand what they mean. You don't even have a definition from an anglicized definition of them. You're just saying, I don't know what those mean. And then try to say it's not relevant either. So, well, it's completely relevant, because if there's a dispute in law, the UN says very clearly that the indigenous treaties, wherever it is in the world, gets priority. Because obviously, if you are the colonialized group coming in, you're going to try and fuck over the natives. So therefore, you want to see what the natives have agreed to, and the natives have agreed to the one written in the native's own language. So that's why it gets priority.
I'll always talk about David Seymour using dog whistle rhetoric, because he knows that if he does it right, you can't specifically point to it, because it has plausible deniability. Well, that's
Sure.
not what I meant. I didn't specifically say that.
Oh, the other thing, and I noticed a piece in the weekend from David Packman actually talking about what the American politicians do is they go, I'm just asking questions. Like, I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking questions. And like you said, they're just dog whistles, Like, I mean, are these people pedophiles? I'm just asking questions. Oh, in the back of the mind, they're pedophile, whatever it is.
He's speaking to fear, and he's stoking fear. There is nothing to fear, in my opinion, with Māori having more say in this country.
Ooh.
Bang. And if it's something over water, like we've fucked our waterways doing it the old-fashioned way, the same way we've always done it. Let's try something else and see if it's better. I'm sick of these regressive politicians looking to the past and looking at change like it's something to be feared. When you're looking at a group like Māori in New Zealand and talking about special groups and special privileges, Māori as a whole aren't benefiting from any special privileges at this point that I can see.
Why aren't they at the top of everything if this is the case? If Māori having all these special privileges and are looked after well and stuff and are getting more than their fair share, why aren't they the top of all the stats? Why are they sort of at the bottom of all the stats? Yep. Why? Because according to David Seymour, it's like they should be. There's no reason. This is the point
we get to a really ugly place at that point where people go, well, basically because they deserve to be.
Yeah,
because they're an inferior race, or because they lost New Zealand due to conquest and that's their own fault.
And this is coming back to this idea.
Always bubbling there.
This idea of saying that at the very least, have a debate around whether you think there should be legal discrimination based on race. But if you start to have that conversation, then you must also say, should there be legal discrimination? I mean, it's a silly way to think about it, but I always talk about the Māori Health Authority is we don't have a problem with going, men in general, and I think there is like a very, very small percentage who have breast tissue, but men in general get no funding for breast cancer. Women don't get any funding for prostate cancer. It's just based on need. And now take away that cancer group and put in there an ethnic group, whoever it might be. If this ethnic group needs like added attention because they die 9 years younger than everybody else and they're trying to figure it out, how is that any different from someone with a broken leg needing to get help for a broken leg? Just because, yes, anyone can get a broken leg, and for example, just this particular group, whichever one it is, are getting extra attention. But if the subset is not breast cancer, but if the subset is Māori or Pacifica or migrant or whatever it is, or refugee, if that's the subset rather than breast cancer, but it's proven easily that subset needs extra help or extra attention, what's the problem? If a group needs extra attention, whether it's breast cancer or whether it's an ethnic group dying 9 years younger, what's the problem? They need extra attention. What are we saying?
I often get the sense when people talk about co-governance that they almost think that it's Māori control. It's not. It's a guaranteed Māori seat at the table. One of many, just a vote, a guaranteed vote. And there's nothing wrong with that because it is just one. It is not control. It is a guaranteed say. And there is nothing wrong with that.
I'm enjoying watching the chats going through, especially the people who are disagreeing with us. That's fine. You're always welcome. As we always say, we don't particularly ban people in this podcast. Is it a podcast? Live stream? In this live stream, if we stay respectful, you're more than welcome to your incorrect opinions. But you're welcome. You're welcome to join, and people in the chat are welcome to respond to you as well. And that's fine. And when people are asking questions about rhetoric that I think, and I'm not to be arrogant, Joey, but I think I've laid out a pretty clear case of why I think it's racist rhetoric. I don't think we need to relitigate why is it racist rhetoric from some people in the chat. But
I think it's pretty clear. Term for it. I think there's a term for it. Pointed to, I think it's called sea lioning, where it's like, no, you've got to show me exactly where it is. You've got to show me the exact quote. We've had years of Seymour talking.
But I said at the start, there may not be an exact quote.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They want, soak up your time hunting for it.
Yeah, no, but I don't need to go there. I think it's very, very clear, and not to beat a dead horse right now, but it's very, very clear that to me, it's my honest held belief that the reason it's racist rhetoric is the only thing that David Seymour cares about equalizing, and I'm using parentheses around equalizing, is issues based around race.
Yep.
Nothing else. Like nothing else, which means he's elevating race to a place where he thinks that's the most important thing to make sure those brownies don't get something a bit extra. That's racist rhetoric.
Yep.
Simple. I don't need to give you a direct quote because I'm telling you that when he starts talking about making it equal under, no more discrimination based on age, and when he supports 16-year-olds getting the vote or 60-year-olds getting the pension, or when he supports able-bodied people parking in disabled car parks, discrimination there, and I agree it's the right reason for a discrimination, or when he supports any of those things, female priests in a church, then cool, have the conversation around race as well. It's just always funny, speaking of dog whistles, how if you look at the far right, alt-right, further right around the world, these issues of race and the victim mentality of white people seems to come to be the forefront. It's funny how that mirrors itself in every Western country. It's funny, eh? None of them talk. It's almost like a weird
straight
trend.
out of a playbook.
Yeah, maybe a little bit like that. So, anyway, okay, I think we're done. I'm got a bit heated in that, but there's the right reason to get heated. And look, let me say this: if anything we said resonated with you tonight, and look, we'll say it again if people watch it on demand or afterwards, we are talking from the left. We don't hide it. This is who we are. This is a commentary show where we talk from the left. We don't carry water. We've been very critical of the left as well on the show, but we talk from the left. If you are someone, and anything you've seen resonates tonight, the clip that we just did, I mean, the conversation we just had about the discrimination thing will be a clip tomorrow morning. If any of it resonates with you, it's not a yay us thing. It's a helping you thing. Use it, pass it around, spread it around. If you want to see your political ideology, your political team do better, then we need to point out the bullshit. Now, we point out the bullshit from the left and the right. In this instance, it's far right bullshit. And like I said, being really straight up with you, we have said this to David Seymour's face when he's been on this show. We don't hide behind anything. We call a spade, and we'll talk to people as we talk to people. We don't hide any of this, and we don't hide who we are. So you'll go to some places in the media world, and they won't tell you where their perspective and their bias is. We do. This is where we sit, right? Some people try and pretend to be the bastion of free speech whilst banning things like swear words on their broadcasts. We actually probably are the actual true space to find free speech in the country right now when it comes to internet media and live stream broadcasting. We don't ban people. We don't ban people unless you get to a point where you're untenable. Unless you go into the chat and start talking about things like the Christchurch mosque shooting being a false flag. That'll get you banned, right? But yeah, disagree with us, no problems. Challenge us, no problems. I think when we've set out a case like we have tonight, we pretty much don't need whatever challenge you want to put out there. We won't respond to, because I don't think it could be any clearer. But you're welcome to be a part of us. It's what we do, and we'll keep doing it. It's who we are. Anyway,
I'll certainly continue to judge David Seymour on his followers. Like, for someone that doesn't think he's using racist rhetoric, there's certainly a lot of racists that follow him.
Well, this is this idea. It's like the Republicans in America. You know, not everyone who votes Republican is a racist or a white supremacist, but it's funny how all the white supremacists vote for the GOP. Like, not everyone who votes for National, not everyone who votes for National is a far right lunatic white supremacist. But it's funny how the far right lunatic white supremacists all vote for those right parties, or another little party on the right that won't end up getting through. Like, let me put it this way: none of those far right white supremacists vote for Labour, the Māori Party, or the Greens. I think that's a fair assumption. So yes, not everyone who votes over there is a white supremacist, racist redneck, but all of the white supremacist, racist rednecks sit over there politically. So before we go, let me say this. If you enjoyed what we've done tonight and you want to get on board and support what we do, then you can become a part of our Patreon. Patreon.com/Big Hairy News. Ignore that. I still haven't changed it. Every night at 9 p.m. Well, not every night, Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. We have 7 levels of support. You're welcome to get involved. And, you know, we normally get our... I don't know where we're going to get our shilling money from now, Chewy. We used to get our shilling money from Jacinda. She used to deliver the envelope to us in a brown paper bag every single week. Now that she's gone, I don't know. I haven't had a meeting with Chris Hipkins yet about our new shilling money. So for now, we're just going to be reliant on the 1.3 cents we make in advertising revenue on YouTube per video, and all our lovely patrons. If you're interested in being involved, if you like, I guess, free media and certainly free speech in a place where we come together with intelligent ideas, and we welcome all of them. Patreon.com/Big Hairy News. Hey, look, before we go, actually, let me say one thing. This is a little bit snarky. I know this is a little bit snarky. Two things I noticed today. Did you notice Chantal Baker on Q&A?
No
pushback.
No, I didn't see that.
No pushback from particular sectors of... If you've been with us for a long time, you'll know what I'm getting at, being a bit snarky. No pushback from various sectors of society for platforming her. The second thing is Byron Clark, who we've got coming up on Friday night. Love Byron, friend of the show. He's released his book. His book does nothing but platform, conspiracy theorists. Lots of congratulations from various aspects of society that perhaps acted a bit differently when we were getting involved in that world. It's just been an interesting weekend to read some tweets and stuff that have been out there. Bit snarky, I know, but I just put it out there. No response from Chewy.
No.
All right, team.
Got nothing.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Look forward to to chatting with you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition. Remember, follow us on YouTube, the Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify. Links are along the bottom. Listen to the audio podcast. If you are going to listen to us on the audio podcast, a rate and a review would be appreciated. It helps us with the algorithms. And other than that, last thing, tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., my podcast, Let's Talk Funny with Di Henwood is out. So the Di Henwood,
it'll be well worth a listen.
Di Henwood podcast tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. So when you get up and drive to work, look up Let's Talk Funny, or follow me on Twitter. There's a bunch of links on there to go and find it. And the Di Henwood podcast out tomorrow morning. Other than that, we'll be back tomorrow night from 9 p.m. All right, Chewy.
Nice one.
All right, team.